Distinguished guests who are here today, and most importantly, the class of 2023. It is my honor and my privilege to be here today. As I was getting ready to prepare for this, I realized it was 22 years ago that I stood at this very spot, was the class orator from my class of 2001. The message I gave that day is going to be very different than the message I give you today. For the message I give you today comes from 20 plus years of experience as a minister, in the years being your professor. You see, as the moment I was asked to do this, I had one thought come in my brain. And the thought that I want to leave you with today, the last lesson I get to give you as your professor, is simply this. Do not ever be afraid to step out of the boat. Now, what I'm referring to, hopefully those of you who had me in Harmony of the Gospels will quickly get, is the Apostle Peter. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, starting with verse 22, the text reads as this. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When he came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves. For the wind was against him. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. When he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." I want to tell you, as you embark on the mission that God gives you, that there are going to be moments where God will put you in very uncomfortable situations. There will be time He's going to ask you to do something hard, perhaps something even impossible. When that moment comes, I want you to remember something. I want you to remember that there were 11 people in the boat who were terrified. I want you to remember there is 11 people who did nothing. One man stepped out of the boat. According to recorded history, there have only been 2 people who have ever walked on water, and only one of them was not the Son of God. Yes, Peter began to sink, but I want you to remember the 11 could say nothing because Peter got out of the boat. He only sank when he took his focus off of Jesus. I want you to remember this account as you go ahead. And I want to tell you that to the class of 2023, you already have the skill. Now, in order for me to explain what I mean, I have to go back and tell a brief story. It's a story not everybody knows. It was the year 2016. After nearly a year of being left in limbo, nobody knew for sure what was going to happen with Louisville Bible College. It looked dead. The regents, under the leadership of Dr. Sweeney, and he does deserve a lot of credit for this, and I'm not just saying that because he's my boss standing behind me, but that does help. They made a decision to keep the school open. They made another decision. They made the decision to go and ask the late Dr. Tom Mobley to come back. With those decisions, it was decided to put a skeleton faculty and schedule together to try to have school. No one knew what was going to happen. Well, guess what? I was the first one to come that day. My class was the first one on the schedule. When I walked into Omer Hall, it was still tore up from the repairs we were making in it. None of the chairs or tables were in order. I had class, and no one showed up. The first class didn't have any students the first day. We would get to the next week. We were able to therefore put the school back together. Nobody knew what would happen, and later that night I had another class, and I had one student come through the door. The future was still left in doubt, because a lot of people didn't want to step out of the boat and give the school a chance yet. For a semester, we survived. And I use that word intentionally. It was surviving. For a long time, we didn't know what to do. In fact, I can remember, and I don't know how many of you guys may remember this, my original pitch to students went something like this. Yes, Louisville Bible College has had its trouble, and no college can guarantee that they will be here and be open next year. Schools close all the time. But we believe you will. That was said for integrity's sake, just in case. But something happened. As the close of that semester came, we had a young man come through, and his name was Clint. He was going to bring his sister, Allie, to class next year. And I thought, man, these kids, I hope we can put something together for them. And when they came to my class next year, they were 2 students in my class, which meant they really had to pay attention because there was a 50-50 chance I was going to call on one of them in class. And they stayed. They took more classes. They took a step out of the boat. They had other options. But with a leap of faith, they gave LBC a chance. With that step, Allie began your journey. And you finished it today. A little bit later, another student came. He's not part of this class here, but I'm going to mention him anyways. Dr. Terry Peer brought his grandson, Tanner, to school. And Tanner had a choice. He actually had other options as well. Tanner decided to come to school. And sometimes it was just him and maybe a couple other students. And sometimes he had to spend upstairs by himself. He came. And one day Tanner came to me. Tanner says, I got this friend. And I was immediately looking up because I really had to see if Tanner had a friend. He says, I want you to come meet this friend. And I thought, well, if nothing else, I'm going to get Canes out of this and get some good sweet tea. That friend was Jacob. Jacob had other choices. Jacob talked to me. We talked over at Canes, and I didn't know for sure what Jacob was going to do. I don't know if Jacob knew what he was going to do. The next year, he took a step of faith. You began your journey. You stepped out of the boat. Today, you've completed your journey. So I had two boys from Grant County that called me and wanted to come to school. That was Tanner and Jacob. All of a sudden, I get a phone call, and I got somebody from Harrison County who wants to come. And he said, could you meet me at a restaurant there in Cynthiana? And I said, sure. I went and met Michael. And we sat down at the restaurant there, and his wife was the waitress that day. And I still remember those swamp fries. They were really, really good. And as I kept talking to Michael about school, his wife kept eavesdropping. And she kept saying, well, what's this about? What's that about? And, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if she was just really curious about the school or if she really had to keep an eye on Michael. I later discovered it was both. She came to me and said, I'd like to do that. We'd like to have him. Ashley took a step out of the boat. She had other options. She decided to give LBC a chance. You began your journey that day, and today you complete your journey. There will always be other classes. But the class of 2022, the class of 2023, and Michael, I'll include you in the class of 2024. These three classes will always have a place in my heart. Because I thought this place was dead. Something that we don't often give credit to is school cannot be a school without students. And they had to give us a chance. Because they gave us a chance, Dr. Mobley and I, who both saw the school when it was at its height, were standing in the hallway one day when this group of students joined with others, such as Dale Bertram Jr., such as Jimmy Butters, such as Dave Bollinger and others, were coming through the halls. You see, that first year, I spent many a day over in that building completely by myself. When I started seeing students in the hallway, Dr. Mobley and I both looked at each other and we said, it feels like the old days. Because it did. I don't know how, but the spirit of the school was recaptured. And I would go home and tell my wife, these guys would have fit in with us 20 years ago. All three of you graduates today had safer bets. All three could have went where there was more students, more faculty, and more options. You stepped out of the boat into the unknown without any assurance and not knowing whether anybody was going to catch you. You only believed that this is where Christ led you, and you gave the school a chance. Let me tell you what that means now. When we first rebooted up in 2016, we did not know how long it was going to last. We held our first graduation again that year, and we've had one ever since. We began to fill up our classes again where we used to have nobody walking through the hallway. I now have people coming and knocking on my door all the time wanting me for something. We've added online classes for students who could not be here. We have seen our debt start to shrink to a point I did not know if we'd ever reach. We're now going away from survival mode to planning mode for a future. We have seen our faculty, staff, students, and alumni write in multiple Restoration Heralds, one of our more important publications in our brotherhood. And every year that I start looking at the schedule for Hillsborough Family Camp, the Spring Clinic, Barnabas' Winter Workshop in Worship, the CRA's Bible Symposium, the Florida Bible Conference, and the Southern Indiana Family Rally, among others, I see faculty, I see students, I see alumni. And what I started to realize is because you gave us a chance. The school is making a positive influence once again in the restoration movement. Pulpits are being filled. Lives are being changed. Our students are going on to graduate programs, who I'm very proud of. We have had faculty that have been added to our alumni, we've had alumni that's been added to our faculty. When I look over the past few years, I often tell people, God resurrected school. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart for everyone that I have mentioned here. That would never have been possible had you not stepped out of the boat. When you leave here today, you're going to be asked to step out of the boat once more. When that happens, I want you to think back on your time here at Louisville Bible College. Your journey began because you stepped out of the boat. Don't be afraid to do it again. God has lives that need repairing, souls that need saving, Christians that need to be taught, churches that need to be restored, a field waiting for a harvest, a generation that needs hope. The lesson I want you to take here is it all takes place when people step out. Be that person. Now, I don't want anybody to be left out, so to Keith, Meta, and Bill, today's very special for you guys too. Many want to take the journey that you guys have embarked upon. Some never have, some have, but quit. It's not because they didn't lack skills, it's not because they didn't lack intelligence, it's because they didn't want to endure. I know you're all sharing these too. And I know for all three of you, you've had struggles for this very moment. Different for each of you, and I will not share each of those, but I know what they've been and you know what they have been too. I learned a long time ago a secret. Education is as much about endurance as it is intelligence. It's not only the price you pay, but the people who are here today have helped you pay a price and helped you have support as well. And please don't forget that. So I thought of a passage that also came out of 2 Timothy today, and Paul talked about running his course. He finished his race. I thought about that. There's a lot of illustrations you could use on that. You know, me personally, I don't think it's a secret. I like pro wrestling. Wrestling cannot be a good illustration. You want to know why? Wrestling depends upon your own strength. Ministry is never about your strength. It's about God's. The Rocky fan in me thought about boxing, but the problem is you can't out-hit Satan. Satan hits harder and he cheats. And he'll hit you in a place that is most unfair. Paul used the illustration of a runner. A runner has to endure and determine to finish the race. When he or she's muscles start to hurt, when they start to fall behind, when you see something else that's much better to do, you want to quit. But you want the runner who finishes the race. Ministry's not always about talent, guys. I've seen people with better talent than I, not saying it. It's not about intelligence, for you can be right, but others will still wrong you. It's about the mind that says, I will not give up. It's just like the mind that decides to step out of the boat. I want you to remember the challenges that you had to overcome to come to this moment right here. I want you to remember your journey. You never forget it. I want you to remember that no matter how difficult it became, no matter how hard it was at times, no matter how much homework we gave you, you endured till the end. For all three of you, your journey ends today. Phil, I'm not forgetting you either. Don't worry. Today's not the end of your journey, though. Your certificate is what's waiting for you. Something you've worked hard for and something you've earned. But in the immortal words of Bon Jovi, you're only halfway there. And you're living on our prayers, okay? It's meant to give you encouragement. As I just told them, you don't quit. This is a journey we went here 20 plus years to. You will see the finish line, and just as these years of yours today are getting dirty clothing, you will get yours. I know. That time is coming. Don't be one of the 11 who sat in the boat. I want you to step forward. Before you all walk today, I want you to take courage in Peter. I want you to remember that Peter did fall. He did not drown. For you see, when Jesus calls, he also catches. If he called you to his word, and you feel like you're starting to sink, you reach out to him. He will not let you down. He does not call and walk away. He's with you every step of the way. I also want you to remember this is not the last time that Peter got out of a boat. He did it one more time. It's the second time we should actually notice. By this time, Peter went from a man who would draw a sword on a soldier to a man who would back down by a slave girl. He went from the man who gave the good confession to the man who denied Jesus 3 times. Yet it never stopped him from going to Jesus. Gospel of John, chapter 21. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. He revealed himself in this way: Simon, Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. He said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into his boat. But that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore. Yet the disciples did not know it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and they were able to haul it in, because there was a quantity of fish. The disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, it is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garments, for he was stripped for his work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but 100 yards off. I want you to understand something. At some point in your ministry, you will be bruised. At some point, you will be beaten. Sometimes it's things that we do as sinful humans, maybe our arrogance, maybe our mistake, or maybe, just maybe, someone will hurt you for doing the work of the Lord. When Peter truly fell, not in the water, but to Satan's temptation, he went immediately back to the Lord. I can't let you get away without having one more illustration from the Rocky movies. In the movies, Rocky had one determination in the first movie. I'm not going down. I'll stay to the end. And there was something I never really thought much about before. In the movie, Mickey told him to stay down. And he got up, finished the fight. He didn't let the pain stop him. No matter what you're feeling, no matter what you endure, no matter what you do, do not stay in that boat too long. It gets too comfortable. Do not let Satan win. There will always be an excuse. There will always be a Mickey telling you to stay down, but the true Christian steps out of the boat again and again. The past is not always the future, but you can determine what it will be. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want this speech to end because I'm long-winded. Because I know what's happening next. Yesterday, you were my students. Today, you're my peers. Thank you for being here.